Welcome to our live today. We are going to be going live with Pete from Simply Rawgeous. He has been a raw vegan for over 18 years. He just had a baby, so we're super excited to hear all about his wife's raw vegan pregnancy, all of his plant-based dishes, and more. Hi, Pete. Let's get you on here. One second. Hi, Jerome. Okay. All right. Super bright out this morning. Good morning, everybody. All right. Hello, hello.
Hi,
Hi, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So I've got my little madam who wants to try and come in on the scene here.
Oh my gosh, so excited. Good morning
So,
to you. It's so bright here. Oh my goodness. You have your little one coming. Oh,
oh no, she does that. She likes to get in on the ads.
oh
Have
my
a
gosh, how
have a quick look.
sweet.
Good
How
wave.
are you? Aw. Hi, sweetheart. Oh my
That's,
gosh, it's so
that's
cute.
I'll pull her back
Oh,
now.
yeah, no worries. No worries.
Okay.
Good morning to you. It's so bright here today. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, because you're an hour behind, so obviously you probably just come out into the daylight, which is shocking.
Totally,
Um,
totally. Yeah, well,
yeah.
thank you for jumping on here. I was just sharing with everybody right in the beginning, that you've been a raw vegan for 18 plus years. You have these amazing recipes. You're teaching everyone about how to do this lifestyle. And, I know we've talked a couple times before. We already kind of know each other, but we haven't really sat and discussed about you and about
Mm.
your journey. And I think it would be really amazing for everyone to hear about, 18 years is a long time. You're almost like 20 years into this game. And so you have a
Mm.
lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge that you can share with people. So, um, yeah, what made you decide to go raw vegan or vegan? Like
Oh.
how did your big journey begin?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably said a few variations of stories. Hopefully, they don't sound like they're contradicting. But I was totally oblivious, really, in terms of food awareness. I mean, I look back in retrospect, and there was many times I did encounter it, but boom, over my head, over my head, over
Yeah.
my head. Because your reality is just like, well, that's extreme, or that was my reality. And then I did come across someone, this was like maybe 30 years ago, a friend of mine was saying, a really good friend of mine, Darren Green, a friend of his, was saying, oh, that guy's raw. But he's walking around with a carrot and a bit of celery. So I'm just like, what? Why? This was like 33 years ago. So what began my journey, really, it was, I've been in two long-term relationships. And the second one, I would say from maybe 32 to 45. And then we had separated,
Okay.
and I had so lost myself. So there's a pattern I have. We all have different patterns going on. And my default would be, I'm going to say, getting trapped within the many, many trappings one can get into in terms of life. And they don't have to be traps, but for me, it was a trap. But the programming, right, your partner's pregnant. What's the most authentic thing I can do as a man? So going back, if I look back in retrospect, when I was 17, then, or 19, apologies, I would go into that, say, program that I had. And, so what did we do? It was whether get married or go for the mortgage, whatever. And it was just so we went for the mortgage and to settle down, to provide the best. So from a man's perspective. And that's going back then many years. But after I'll try and keep it here. So 18, 19 years ago, probably 20 years ago after the separation again, I was so lost again. I'm like, man, I'm here again. I'd look in the mirror and there's this other side of me that still was there looking at me and like, wow, you are lost. And then I'm having this little discourse. What do I do? You know? And so then what came to mind, I remember this documentary called The Secret. You know, it's got some cheesy things, but it's beautiful. If you go, most things are beautiful in their essence, you know, in their core essence. If you can see past, maybe I got my big house, I got my big car, I got this, I got the perfect
Right.
relationship, etc. Then you know, if you sort of wished for a potential total recall or total harmony in oneself as opposed to all them other things, they would just fall into place. So a collage, you know, me looking back at a collage would have been like, oh, I'm not going to be doing them kind of things. So I'm like, you are so lost. You have to do, you know, I'm getting this in the middle. You have to do anything. So I did this collage of me when I felt the best. It was around 33. I was at festivals playing didgeridoo, drumming, really free aspects. You know, aquarium as well. So the free aspect of an aquarium. And then I had this beach. I found this cutting of a beach. I put that out, and a few other things on it. And then I did actually forget about it. So it sounds a bit like one of the stories in the movie. And then you know, a few months later, I came across. I started up a bit of qigong again, and come across these women who were well rehearsed in Jin Shin Jyutsu. So I started using these protocols as well. And I couldn't believe the shifts that were happening. So you could imagine like applying potential acupuncture on yourself, but you are able to do it. And they call it the grandmother of acupuncture. So there I was doing these flows, and I was just clearing thing after another. So you can imagine after an 11-year relationship, my daughter was 5, we separated. So all what was immersed in my reality was just, you know, the partner, my child's mum, you know, it's just like, oh, I'm going through all the unresolved stuff that we never really truly resolved over them 11 years, you know, and reliving the movie, this part, that part, it's like, oh, you know, and tears and joy. So the Jin Jitsu really helped me on my way. And I had a good dream awareness, because when I was 17, I did do these 2 groups and learned about breathwork, dream work, daily diary, rediscover, astrology, and meditation, different meditations on the elements, as well as a living group work in the last 3 months, which correlates to constellation work, shadow work, inner work. For some people, what does that mean? It just means really facing a held space, facing your projections, really, what's coming up, and you know, different tools to bring that out, really, of us. So I don't want to go on too much. So Jin Shin opened my doors. I was ready for a change. And then what happened a few months later, 6 months, 8 months later, so I was changing as fast as I was changing quick. I thought really quick. It's like, whoa, what am I going to do in my life now? Yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. We had this workshop I had. I used to work on classic cars, etc., and do welding and painting. And I transformed 3/4 of it into like music rooms, an engineer room and music rooms and people. So it was bringing creativity into this more, say, commerce dead space. So bringing life, you know. And then what happened, long story, that burnt down. I did have a burner in there and used to have like a oven, what you could call an oven, big oven space for painting cars. That burned down. The next day I was shown that was a safe wake-up call, you know. And this is jumping into my Jin Shin the next day. Didn't know what to expect, but I'm reliving the experience. People tell me about certain ayahuasca experiences, or there's a movie, I think it's called Blueberry, someone told me about, and the, you know, the woman's been traumatized, etc., and the shamans give her this ayahuasca, relive in the experience. So for me, step by step, I was reliving the experience. So after that, this was the next day, imagine, lost loads, lots, you know, I don't know, in terms of monetary, 40 grand's worth of stuff, customers, cars, friends, you know, music equipment and loads of things. So, you know, could have had a lot of guilt. However, what was happening after clearing the shop, you know, this so euphoric, sort of orgasmic feeling I was having. And I'm like, my mind saying, I shouldn't be feeling like that. I'm not allowed to feel like that, you know?
Right.
You know, it's just like, and it reminded me of a sister passing when I was 28, she was 35. So I worked with that feeling, and then what happened after that was I didn't go through really any other emotion around that. It was so interesting. So people sort of say after separation, this happens, this happens, this happens. So I recognized my body is just not, doesn't buy into that anymore. Occasionally something might come up. So from there, from the Jin Shin, I came across the food. I came across a year before that, someone who had done potential water fast. And I remember at the festival, I was offering him some food. This was before I was raw. And he says, no, it's fine. And then I noticed he wasn't eating anything all over the whole event. So I asked him again. He's a really interesting guy, lots of meditation, lots of other practices. And then he says, look, Pete, I haven't really ate for a year. I'm like, what? You know, literally, I didn't know anything about the food, fasting, all these other modalities. So then he's telling, I probably had, I don't know, maybe the odd taste of some beans or crisps and mostly water over, and not much water over the whole year. You know, he's a musician, he spent and hardly sleep 4 or 5 days without sleeping. So that really intrigued me. So I'm thinking, right, I want to jump on that. I'm going to do a water fast. But then I came across an amazing guy. Yeah, I came across an amazing guy months down the line called Adam. I hope I'm not boring too many people here, but I'll try and edit it down. Adam,
You're doing good.
Who's passed away now, you know, a long time. He was maybe 10 years younger than me at the time. Another interesting guy. He didn't have much to say, sitting there in this sort of small office next door to me. They were doing biofuel, and he was working for them. And then we got into some beautiful conversations, and he's telling me about he did a 26 days in the Andes, you know, 26-day water fast in the Andes. I'm like, whoa. And he would really push his body and experiment, sleep deprivation, and all things like that. And then as time went on, I'm like, what's that you got there? He just had this movie. He says, oh, I'm on a kind of fast, you know. And then as days unfold, that was his staple. Now, he was very up on his nutrition. And I must admit, I'm very grounded. So there was a connection. If I hadn't met him and met a lot of, I'm going to be honest, a lot of the other raw foodies I've experienced, I potentially wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't have switched. But that's just my thinking. Like when I see too much ego involved or too much pretentiousness or a lack of connection, you know, but I did meet him, because still it's a slight judgment from me, because there's always a core divine essence to everything, you know. Just because we take something and interpret and express it and be proactive in it in a certain way, that doesn't, you know, discredit the core essence. There's so many beautiful words from the Bible, from many, you know, whether it's Sufi, many traditions that have just been used so many times, and then we just kind of, oh, that old chestnut again, or whatever. So he mentioned about raw food, so wow, and I'm quizzing him about that.
Pete, one second, okay? My little
Go
boy's yelling, okay, talking to me. 1 second. Hey, buddy, just have Daddy take care of him. Okay? He's saying that the baby just woke up. He goes, the
Okay.
baby, the Babu
I
just
mean,
woke up.
you know,
He's 12. He's 12 months old, but Papa has him. Papa has
yeah,
him. I think
respect.
I think my little boy, my 6-year-old, wants to come into the camera.
Yeah,
He
listen,
keeps on
you
trying
can,
to find a way. I like see him sneaking around going, oh, can I come
that's
in, mommy? It's so cute. But keep going with what you're
similar to my
sharing.
daughter. And total respect for you juggling what you're juggling.
Ah,
I get
thank
it.
you.
So yeah, so that switched me on to the raw food, and I'm quizzing him. So what, you can still have this? You know what, like chocolate or ice cream? And so I'm like, you know what? As in my meditation, Pete, that's what you need to be doing. You know. So the Jin Shin opened doors to, for me, I realized, to see symbols, to actually witness and listen, as opposed to just keeping our, you know, black and white potential reality. So I was really determined to stay open, you know, because I was shown that was a safe wake up call with the fire, and literally like a Christmas Carol scenario, screws. Not that I was tight like him, but in terms of the visitation, you know, literally, you know, I don't want to go too much on them realms here, but we may. So, and when I, like, you've had some amazing connections, and uh, what do we call them, downloads, whatever we want to call them. You know, if we get out the way more, we have all the information there, what we need in a given moment. You know, whether we call it Akashic records or capitalize on it, like I see lots of people doing it. But we all have them unique, if we call them abilities, it's just our divine right, I see. So I I wanted to be around. I had a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old at the time, two
Mm,
boys, and my 4 or 5-year-old daughter at the time. You know, even if it wasn't for myself, you know, because in the
yeah.
beginning we don't have the self-love, you know, so we tend to want to be around for the children.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, obviously over the years that had changed. So in terms of self-love, so I jumped on this the label raw vegan food journey. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even vegan to me before that was just extreme. I could not get my head around it. This is my, you know, some people, you know, I just use the word fortunate to know about these things in their teens, you know. I think when we are very in survival mode, fight or flight, you're in it. It's like running the gauntlet, you know, you're just in it. And I see so many
Right.
people in it. And it's so beautiful to be in it. So that I don't have any blame, no guilt, as far as I know. If it comes up, I'll get rid of it as quick as I can. So
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure I do have some actually. But what I mean is, I'm not hanging on into any of that, because it stagnates my flow, stagnates my frequency, stagnates growth, stagnates movement. And if I'm going to collapse on an issue and keep collapsing on a problem, you know, we're these divine beings, you know, in terms of energetic beings who could bring in quantum physics, but you know, keep collapsing on the negative. You know, it's just like, you know, what you sort of, let's just say, give attention becomes your reality, you know.
Right.
So I jumped on the journey of that. So the first 4 or 5 days, because I had this other awareness, I could not believe what was going on with my body. It was just like,
Mm.
oh, even from Jin Shin, things had far, you know, doubled up, quadrupled. But then I went on to the food, and it's just like I mentioned before, probably 5 times. Everything's going faster. So it's as
Mm.
if I was catching up with myself. It's as if it accelerated. What we want to call karma or whatever. It's, in other words, what was really going on? The river in my system, the electric flow was just okay, moving and pushing out the old entities, the old, you
Right.
know, realities, whatever they may be, or what I believed, who I believed I was, what identity I was feeling, what I projected out, what other people are projecting back to me because of what I'm projecting out. So there's all there's a whole package of reality there. So, but you know, what we give attention to, we create that entity as an entity, you know, the entity, the identity of Pete, you
Right.
know. if I'm going to stay with that old identity, then I'm self-fulfilling, self-fulfilling, prophesizing, you know, that old paradigm and collapsing there, keep collapsing there. But everyone seems to have collapsed, fallen, so to speak, if we use a double meaning. So, so food. So that's how the food journey started. So I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I want to sustain this whatever way possible. So with the Jin Shin, if I didn't have the Jin Shin, it would have been much more challenging. You know, other people can have other practices, you know,
Right.
yoga, qigong. And if I didn't have the sort of more inner connection back, rekindled that more, then I can see how easy it would have been to, this doesn't work, that's not
Right.
working, you
Right.
know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it
So
just,
you had the spiritual practice to be able to help you stay committed and to
mm,
work through what was happening when you went on this this raw vegan lifestyle. Like you said, the rivers were flowing and everything,
mm,
and it was like the old you, your identities, all of that was just coming off of you so quickly. And I
mm,
love that you were saying that, you know, you wanted to be around here for your children. And I think that's such a beautiful goal, right? You're like, I'm doing this for them. You know, obviously you're doing it for yourself, but like to put that in the forefront, it gives you more motivation, and that
mm,
is such a testament to you. And I feel like the same for me. It was like I want to do this for my family and for
mm,
my child and for my future children, you know. So that's really beautiful. Like that was your motivation and that was your goal,
mm.
and here you are. And um so you were doing your practice and that was keeping you to stay on this lifestyle. And did you feel like immediately a difference, like even in your physicality and like how you're able to do your practice? Were you able to be more flexible? Was there certain changes that happened there as well?
Mm. Well, the Jin Shin Jyutsu sounds like a martial art, but it's, you know what it is? Literally laying down, putting your hands on certain circuits. So
Ah,
people,
okay. I want to
yeah,
know
so
this.
no, so it's literally, imagine you're laying down and having acupuncture. So you're just laying down. Your feet, your hands are the needles. They call them jumper cables. So you
Okay.
know, a classic one. Imagine like a circuit board. So someone has, this to say, this founded Jiraiya Murray, in the 1920s in Japan. I'm going to say we found lots of the old methods. They say it's before, you know, before biblical Joseph, except Moses, etc. So you're just laying down, you know. So I laugh at myself. It's like, wow, I found the most laziest way of acting, sitting still and just, you know, clearing, not having to go and do this, having to go and do that. So on a level, if I really did discipline in that, that would keep you flexible. Of course, you need movement. You're in this physical, you know, vehicle. We need movement.
Right.
But I've always been fairly flexible and very physical in terms of the work I do. So that is literally, as you can imagine, laying down and someone's putting needles on. So your hands are jumper cables. So you imagine, and the beautiful thing I loved about it, I mean, I did come across Reiki and a few other modalities.
Mhm.
But what I loved about this is why it resonated with me. It was just like, wow, it's like I know that. It felt so deep. And what the beautiful thing was is because you're not dependent on a healer, you're not dependent on someone else. So it's very empowering. And then they had all these images. We all knew that once. You know, we
Mm.
didn't even need that once, you know.
Mhm,
But when
mhm.
certain frequencies get stuck, oh yeah, just, you know, hold your thumb. That's your spleen and stomach. That'll help digestion.
Right.
That'll help worry. You know, or the next finger is fear. You know, and it goes frustration, worry, and then pretentiousness. And they each finger connects to organs. So what you're doing is you're becoming your own healer. You know,
Mhm.
and sometimes not saying, you know, that people can't help you on the way, but you don't want to be dependent on that. I was getting so many strong messages that this is going back 19 years ago. You know, there's no more being crutches for people. Everyone has to be accountable. This is 19 years ago, and that's coming strong. So that was my practice. Other than that, I wasn't really doing any training. I made a pact with myself not to do any training. I did do it in my teens till I was about 25. The reason being because I knew what I was doing at that time. I was just all these emotions that I didn't know how to articulate or express. I was just okay. I just feel great after that because it's all gone into my body. You know, it's gone somewhere. It's moving somewhere. So that was my experience of training, and I do see that with others. It doesn't always have to be that way.
Yeah.
So the Jin Shin. So if you can imagine, let's just say a craving came up. So I might have the last 10, 14 years from the age of 30, I still did fish. I gave up all the, you know, program, flesh meat, old program. And I did fish for the 14 years. So I was still having fish and chips and etc. like that. So let's just say I had a craving, oh man, I'm missing the fish or chips, you know, or whatever it is. So I do my Jin Shin, you know, it's just like, because everything's energy, everything's energy. We can get so caught up, even now I'm using the words, now we're using the words, but we can get a bit caught up in, yes, that's what it is, but everything comes from source, everything comes from energy. So it's trying to find its way home, really. So if I just say, okay, I found a technique, I'll do my, for instance, large intestine. I used to do that loads. I can do that on myself. And you think about large intestines in terms of letting go, you know. And there's more other analogies to that. So there I was just doing it, and then bang, I'm 7. Forgot about this. It just wasn't in my mind. I'm reliving this experience when I'm 7. And it was pretty embarrassing, shock to my system experience. So over the years, I was having that time and time again. So I had this connection, awareness. Every time a frustration or whatever may come up, I would use my practice. And then eventually, you don't need any of these tools all the time. They're just tools to bring you back to a connection, you know, hence the astrology I use. I'm using it, bringing it into this 21-day reset, etc., and the Jin Shin Jyutsu. So it's just sharing what's supported me so much on my journey. So people at festivals, how come you sustained it? I'm like, I share them that story, you know. I share them the fact that, well, when it's like smoking, drinking, you know, you go to the core, which many people have, and then they get to see the core or release the core, you know, and 99 times out of 10, it's traumatic, a trauma, you know, some form of trauma that's gone on. So we release that energy, then or different forms of giving up smoking, but whether you know it or not, you've gone back and have been able to release the energy where that has actually come from. So that's what was happening with the food. So that's how I sustained it. And it made so much sense that as I went more on my journey, so much sense, really, that these are our centuries, these are our vehicles. And if we use an analogy of a car, whatever, washing machine, a boiler, everything gets serviced after a while, otherwise it's just going to break down and you have to get a new one. Well, on a level from that perspective, well, why not keep servicing your vehicle so you don't have to maybe come back into a new one with the same old story, you know? So, you know, I mean, that's an analogy, but, you know, also I feel like I've lived 5 lives in this lifetime. Another topic, I was the youngest of 6 as well, so that played a massive role. And on a level, if I come from the perspective of choosing this life, you know, my mum's, you know, fairer than you, blue-eyed, My dad's from Caribbean, St. Vincent, my biological dad. And we had lots of stepdads, quite messy stepdads. So there was, imagine you're revisiting all that. You know, no wonder no one wants to generally go deeper, or whatever protocol they do, whether it's yoga, qigong, whatever it is. You can see where we stay at a level, because generally what we're facing, or we stop, as we peel off layers, we go deeper. And, you know, so we whatever them modalities I just mentioned we're doing, we are, you know, the co-creators. So we are evoking, by going on the food journey, you're evoking change. You're asking, you know, your spirit for change, you know, your spirit to come in. And again, you know, it's like the spirit can't land into a cluttered body, you know. I believe natural law. And again, I keep loving to go back to source energy and natural law, because there's so much misinformation, so much confusion. If you just go back to sort of more a feeling of natural law, of course, everyone can interpret it that differently as well.
Right.
You know, so but you think about, you know, an energy match. You create. So spirit, I would say, in soul, spirit in its natural form is pure. So it cannot come into an impure body. You know, we can blame this, blame that, but just if we keep it simple, because, you know, we all love to blame. It's just be accountable, clear it out, and then we can talk about higher vibration, lower vibration. To me, it's just like when a child's born, it's in this most closest to highest vibration. Again, like you and me know, you know, the whole 9 months in the womb is a whole other story as well.
Oh yeah.
So that, I mean, we can move on to that, but so that was my journey, and it was just like I wanted to be around, and I'm so pleased I was guided in that way without even knowing, and had to go through so much. You know, some people could probably say to you, "Hey, Sarah, you're so lucky where you are." It's just like, have you got a few hours? Do you want to sit with me? And I'll tell you how lucky I am. You know, because if we want to use that, I don't want to go into how unlucky I was, but it's just like, you know, I try and be careful of choosing certain ideologies or programs or beliefs, because, you know, I like to not get too stuck in them, even though I'm going to be using them here. You know, on a level of even potentially if I chose, I come to the point where, look, okay, maybe that was true. I am here right now. What can I do about now? You know, of my whole 63 solar return cycles of experience, from whatever age you are, I personally believe, well, I'm going to say it was all meant for a reason. Even if it weren't meant for a reason, it's just happened to you. So how can you get the most best from all what has happened? How can you get to that most elevating aspect of yourself, you know? And then just get on with it. Just get on with it. If I want to do guilt, blame, then I'm going to have people projecting that onto me as well, because it's in my field. Not just that. What am I doing? I'm just ultimately still stuck on a problem. Like I mentioned, I don't want to go down to the next layer of truly, authentically looking at myself. So I'm going to blame her. I'm going to blame him. You know, so when you sort of see all these things, I think I was fortunate on a level to have that introduction when I was 17. You know, at that age, 18, what do you do with all that information? You know, imagine 18, and you're tapped into a lot of pretty, very esoteric, deep, or awakening awareness. You know, talk about blue pill, red pill, but very red pill stuff. You know, so I think I probably took that out of my mouth and went back to the blue pill for a little while. So, but when I actually stopped and sat and worked on myself when I was 45, 19 years ago, something like that, 18 years ago, all what I had learned made sense. A lot of it didn't make sense. It's like, oh, that's what that meant. That's what this meant. You know, whether it was from Chris Alexander or Nina Ashby, Douglas Ashby, you know, amazing two different groups, two different founders of the founders of this BACS, they call it, British Astrological Psychic Society, something like that. So yeah, I had all that. So over the last few years, it's like, okay, how do you get that package and share that with people without going too out there? You know, I know me and you from other truth stations on the having you on a podcast and like.
Yeah.
I know we could go so a
Yeah.
certain reality. You might touch
You
a bit
know,
of it.
you know what's happening right now? I don't know if you're realizing this, but like as you're speaking, I'm literally sending like I have questions that I want to ask you,
Mm,
and I don't even have to say it out
mm,
loud because you're just answering them. So I'm just literally having, I mean, you probably know
beautiful.
this. I'm having this connection with you, and I'm just
Mm,
asking you questions in my mind, and you're literally answering them to the camera.
great,
This is like
beautiful.
it's so cool to just witness the the connection that's happening, but also like to hear your story and to hear like where you've come from and where
Mm,
you are now, and like the level and the depths that you're going. You know, a lot of people think of this lifestyle as just it becomes, you know, this physicality, like I want to look like this or I just want to feel like this, and it's never, they don't go so deep into the spirituality aspect as well as the emotions and like how that affects you emotionally, and
mm,
how your traumas come up, how your past lives come up when you just go on this lifestyle alone, and how it is all energy. And like the fact that you had a practice, even though it was a laying down
mm,
practice. I love that. Thank
mm,
you for sharing that, by the way,
mm,
because I didn't actually know that. So I think everybody who's listening to this can understand what that practice is. And I want to try that. Like as you're talking about it, I'm like, oh, I want to learn this practice. Like,
mm,
how do I do this? You know, and that practice helped you, you know, if you did have a craving, if something did come
mm,
up for you, you were like, okay, like I just need to go into this practice and release the energy that's holding on to why I'm craving this food or why I'm craving even this emotion or even this
mm,
experience, you
mm.
know?
It's
So
beautiful, honestly, yeah.
it's
I
really
worked with also, you know, going back at that time, I worked with, say, I chose to be celibate for a few years as well. But, you know, some people say, yeah, I did and all this, but no, but actually, did you choose it? Sometimes if you choose it,
yeah, yeah.
it's fine that it just didn't happen for a few years, but did you make the conscious effort? And the amazing thing was, going back at that time, when I chose it, then there's all these invitations seem to manifest to try and pull you. It's just like, that's a trick. But
The test, right?
I
Like,
know,
are you
it's
going to come out
amazing.
of this?
It's amazing. So, for instance, working with that energy as well, you know? And
Yeah.
it's just like, honestly, same scenario. So, see, this is what I mean. We go back to energy. It's just our imprint in program. And we're all slightly different, but they're very similar programs. So, for instance, okay, I could have had that feeling and just, if I was in a relationship, we could have just made love, etc. Now, now I'm choosing to be celibate.
Right.
So I go into that feeling, wow, then I'm hitting the same things. I'm hitting different traumas, you know? So
Yeah.
doesn't mean, you know, so where I was back then, an aspect, not saying I didn't have beautiful times and stuff like that, but which I did, but it was still an element coming from more a lower base desire, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful going through that, and then, you know, clearing it. Oh wow, that's just gone now. You know, the
Yeah.
craving, whatever, you know, the food craving.
Yeah.
So that was so beautiful to work with and know that you can do that. And when you mentioned what I loved about it, you know, even if you potentially, I don't know where your hands are right now, what are your hands doing, or what was they doing just a second ago, you know?
Right. Right. Right.
You know, as we hold hands, you know, it's a study. You know, I mean, that's for your mind. You know, and they call it the 17s, or even if you're holding fingers, which you witness many people doing. So we are constantly doing it.
Yeah.
The good, amazing thing is like you know, our daughter's laying like this, sucking her thumb, sucking her finger. You know, it's like, wow, we've got some pictures of her. It's the Jin Shin in its most natural form.
Yeah.
So without capitalizing the name Jin Shin Jyutsu, it's reading energy, it's reading,
Right.
you know, so like if a plant trying to survive, it's going to do whatever it needs to do, or the roots are going to go wherever it can to get the most water. So
Mm-hmm.
my first son, he was doing this all the time. I'm like, wow, you know, back then I thought, well, maybe he was some kind of pharaoh, you know, in a tube, you know, buried
Right.
like that. As I learned Jin Shin years later, um, it's called your 22s, just under the collarbone. And basically that helps you to recalibrate. So wherever you are, so it resets your nervous system. It helps you to reset, relax, breathe, and
Wow.
you know, could be from jet lag. It can be from so that could also be like your rescue remedy. You know, in homeopathy. You know, so what I began to realize. This is why I try not to, even though I'm a raw foodie, so to speak. Basically, what am I? I'm seeking the most best food I can from my body. So yeah, predominantly 80% fruit, and then you know we talk fruit, but we try and get the best we can to really, you know, fill the live enzyme. I'm going to call, you know,
Right.
I could bring alkaline acidic, but I'm going to call enzyme because you know you can cook food and call it alkaline. To me, it doesn't make sense. Or maybe that makes sense in that realm. To me, it doesn't make sense in terms of enzymes.
Yeah.
Enzymes rich, you know, alive. So this is why, and we call it raw. We're going to call it living foods, you know.
Yes.
So you know, we use these words, but it's not that I'm ignorant to the kind of word play, you know. And then some people don't want to class themselves as vegan or plant-based because, you know, some have being really extreme or whatever, but I still use that word, you know.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, knowing full well I'm not just that, you know. You know,
Yeah.
so here,
Absolutely.
you know, hearing me talk now, you know, it's not just a raw foodie or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
what is your, because you're talking about this, what is your contribution to the plant-based bundle right now? Like, what is it that you're
oh
sharing
yeah,
with all of these people? Like, I'm super excited to read your book. Like, what are all, I know it's a recipe book, right? So
mm.
what are you sharing with everybody?
Yeah, it's well, it's more the recipes over the 17 years at festivals. You know, over the
Okay.
years, many people have asked, "Oh, have you got a recipe book? Have you got this?" And some people have offered, you know, at the time, I can help you. And got a great photographer at the time, but we were about to do it, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So we didn't do it at that time. So, you know, with my partner Hannah, we actually got down to doing one. And it really encompasses the recipes that we had done over them 17 years, you know. So all what went out there, you know, feeding thousands and thousands of people. We used to do about, I would say, averagely a 12 a year through the summer.
Wow.
Um, so, you know, really listen to people as well. So these were kind of adjusted to please potentially 95% of people. You can't please them all. But in terms of raw curries, lasagna, falafel burgers, pizzas, chocolate torte, lemon
Nice.
cheesecake, you know, banoffee pie. I mean, there's some breads in there. You know, chai, latte, chocolate drinks, but these are all done on a raw version. I think there's a few soups in there, quiches in there.
Yeah.
So it's
And it,
mainly what we did: breakfast bowls with roots of chia and
yeah.
cultured cashew cheese. So, and then a little introduction about me on the first 2 pages, a little few pages on Jin Shin Jyutsu. I think about 95, page 95 in,
Nice.
and a little bit at the end, encompassing more the a bit of esoteric. You know, so what where I am now, there's other books coming out. As we journeyed, I still look back on that, and still, as far as I'm concerned, they're all epic. All what we put out, epic for people to have. And I wish I had something like that in the beginning.
Right.
So as we moved on, we've done 5 other ebooks, and so that's the book that's coming out in this bundle. So even what's coming out in this bundle is looking amazing. Me and Hannah and I, we're
I
going to
know.
get bundle. You can't turn down a bundle like that, as far as I'm concerned. So we are definitely going to be getting it. And when you think the value, was it $2,700?
Oh my gosh, it's like $2,800 for $50 for like 100 contributions. I'm like,
Yeah,
I got the bundle myself, and I'm like, I have so much to look through here. There's so
yeah.
many amazing recipes. There's so many amazing people that are sharing, just like you. And I wanted to ask you too, because some people who are raw chefs and make really yummy foods, do you actually eat your food, or do you have like a different diet? Like, do you normally make like a lot of gourmet foods, or do you have like a more simple diet? Like, I've heard this
Um,
on both sides from chefs. Like, I know one raw chef that's like, I don't even eat my food. I just eat very simply, but I make all of this for other people because they love it. So are you that type of person, or do you eat your food too?
we are food.
You eat your food.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things which, for instance, we had guests over first night, let's call it, and it's in somewhere today. So we're making this big pizza, and we will bring in a bit of cashew. We won't do too much cashew. I mean, I did that for so many years.
Right.
So as you journey, you realize certain things aren't serving you too well. So it doesn't mean I'm going to eliminate them and, definitely not have them. So, we will share a slice of this pizza. But the idea, we were such a bridge, and we're still being a bridge. So
Yeah.
we don't have salt in our recipes, so people cannot add salt. We
Yeah.
don't have garlic. So for the last 5 years at the festival, we didn't have garlic or onion. Did still do the salt, and no one noticed. People were
Yeah.
loving it just as
Yeah.
much. So you
And can I
all
ask you why you
Mhm.
didn't do garlic or onion? Because, we don't do a lot of garlic or onion either. So what is your take on garlic and onion?
Well, I was a strong advocate of garlic. Even my daughter, she's 24 now, and he's like, "Yeah, Dad, I remember you used to get me eating a whole clove."
Yes, yes.
I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but Anyway, I'm not saying some people still do that. I think the pinnacle of it was when I saw this biological dentist when this was potentially 12 years ago, something like that. And he's got all these different machines, biorhythm machine, but they're very high tech, very high tech. And he's saying, right, stay off meat, fish, dairy, which I knew I wasn't on anyway, and garlic and onions. I'm like, why garlic and onions? And his interpretation of it was because they're high carriers of mercury. That was one, and there were a few other things. So that really, imagine you've been advocating it. So there I am back home researching it, and making sure I don't want to find something to support my garlic and onion addiction or whatever it was. So there was 3 things that stood out for me. One was I think it's in the Second World War. I found that the Italians used to rub it on their bullets because they weren't good shooters. So
Oh, interesting.
I mean, it's pretty morbid, but apparently if it got the person, the garlic would go into the bloodstream and kill the person. Now
Wow.
how that stands today, some people could say, I rub it in my wounds, whatever. But you think we're talking maybe, I don't know, 80 years ago, whatever it may have been.
Right.
And, over that time period, our body has adjusted, desensitized more, etc., etc. So I'm going to say more shut down to the levels of where we can be. So that was one. Another one I found, I don't want to say all shamans. I found certain shamans don't use it because it severs a connection. Now, I found that really interesting. And then another one is they use it for weed killing. Weed killing. They were the three fundamental ones. And there was one more, I'm pretty sure, but they were the three fundamental ones. So I thought, okay, I'm going to work with this. And of course, in Hare Krishna, the onion and garlic, keeps you in your more lower levels, base chakra. That's the impression I got. I mean, someone could have a whole thesis on that, but keeping it simple. So I experimented, took it out of all my foods, and then I didn't miss it. And the other, there might be a little bit in the food, and I'm like, whoa, so pungent. Where I would have had probably 2 cloves, and then there I am having like a minute bit. So what I realize is it so dominates, and actually it dominates everything. You know, it's like, see, I'm not tasting the thyme, I'm not tasting the oregano, the rosemary, whatever, all these other beautiful herbs that we have, you know. So, and the onion, the same sort of story, really. So, we cut them out. We were using chives. We can get chives. We'll use chives. At the moment, we're doing a little bit of spring onion, you know. So they were our reasons, you know, and then we might revisit somehow. We didn't realize this. Someone made something that's full of garlic or got lots of onion, and we better just honestly through the evening, the body's just like, oh my gosh, did not like that at all. You know? So what does that tell you? That tells you.
Sorry, keep going what you're saying. Go, keep going.
No, I'm just going to say, so what does that tell you, really, you know, on a level? Once you start cutting out, once you take the first step in anything in life, you know, you will never know any difference. So here we are running around with all these kind of, you go tasting this and rehashing this and never experienced it and believing you know and throwing I know. Have you experienced? You know? So if we stop throwing around I know and change that by experience, then we wouldn't be hearing that too much, because it's a whole different kettle of fish, because it's a bit of a spell, I know. Oh, so that means you don't have to go any further, you know? So that means you don't have to be accountable, because you believe you know, but you've been spring-fed some reality from someone else. It's like even wanting to take what I say, what do you say, and then we believe we know. No, go and experience life, man. Go and experience these things, you know? Really embody. And then still it's subjected to your experience, you know? And then, so I'm just saying experience. We're all at different levels. My body was seriously compromised, so it was like my 9 lives were up, you know? If we talk of cat life, you know, when I was, like I say, 19 years ago. So that's why some people could see it extreme, could look extreme back then, and my old paradigm of thinking, I would have saw me so extreme. But when you really go into it, our life, our normal average way of thinking, our life is so extreme, away from nature, away from, you know, more a natural way of living.
Absolutely.
But we're quick to judge others who step out of that, you know, because on a deeper level, again, we know what we have to look at. So we're very quick to blame, very quick to project out. So going back to the bundle, though, I think it's amazing, and I'm not here to try and sell it. You're like me and Hannah are like, whoa, get that, because you know, if people really want to shift and, you know, say change for the better and support others, buy it from someone else. Then if you don't want it, give it as a gift. You can't give them a better gift, you know. And I talk about gifts and presents. The biggest thing is our presence.
Yes. And you just bringing your presence and your essence into that book and into other things that you do. I know you're doing I know I got like about 5 more minutes here. It's looks like it's about to storm. It's crazy.
Okay.
But I know you're doing a 21-day reset happening
Mm. Mm.
as well. And so can people still jump in on that? Can they get that from you?
It's that one's closed, but we're doing on the new moon, Cancer new moon. So it's very
Okay.
it's very relevant. We're doing another one on the
Okay,
14th
perfect.
of July. Yeah, this is going
Okay,
really,
okay.
really, really beautiful. I mean, giving them sharing so much, which I would naturally do, and supporting them along the way, supporting them with Jin Shin Jyutsu flows. This is why having your date of birth, date of birth, for instance, did you say no, your son was Gemini, wasn't it? Yeah. Not sure what you was.
I'm a Leo. I'm
Yeah.
July
So,
31st, but my daughter's birthday is tomorrow, actually.
oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
I have a Cancer. Yeah. Which
Cancerian.
totally, totally. Which I'd love to. I think that we'll have to do it next time. In like maybe in a couple of weeks, we could do another call and
Mm-hmm.
go into pregnancies and go into births. And
Mm.
I would love to hear about this new little one you have. I
Oh,
can't wait to. I know the last time we spoke, it was like it was coming, and now
mm.
you have
Oh,
it. So
that's
I'm
it. It was on the
congratulations.
on the Being podcast, wasn't it? I'm still on the Being podcast while my partner's actually, I didn't say, but she's going through labour basically, and
Oh
then
my gosh.
4 hours after, yeah, we birthed on Beltane 5 minutes before midnight. But
Wow.
there's so much. Honestly, it's just having many, uh, like I say, long-term relationships, and we lost our first child, and then there's two children I really get to see because of complications. But say complications, I'm just going to say because it was just the way it is. It's beautiful to have the duality. And then what did that bring up for me? Again, I up my practices if something's getting stuck in. We really need to recognize that, all what we hang on to and lock onto is not normal, is a dysfunction, is a disease. Whether it's gossiping, whatever, they're all dysfunctions. So if we stop doing that, because we can really start moving on, and potentially, if we believe in reincarnation, which I do, cause and effect, why do you want to keep coming back and revisiting that madness? You can go through it all this lifetime. And to me, it's a great time to be experiencing. Yeah, you could say the good and bad is coming to an end, but just go within and keep, plug in there, tap back into the inner world the best you can.
Yeah.
So there's so much about birth, and the last two births
So,
has been so
yeah.
mind blowing,
Yes. Well, I can't
so
wait to
mind blowing.
jump into that. I think we should do it like in a couple weeks from now, like probably like more towards like the middle or end of July. And I don't know if you can see it. Like literally, the wind is like,
I can see it there. Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gonna get rained on. But yeah, it was so beautiful to hear your story and it just like understanding where you come from and everything that you have to share, this inspiration. I really appreciate you sharing that with everyone here. And I'm going to put this up on our YouTube too. It's going to live on Instagram. And I'm going to, cut some clips here so people can hear more about you and to be directed to this longer. I know not a lot of people watch these hour longs, but those smaller clips are good because then they can go, oh yes, now I want to watch the whole thing, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's just really inspiring also to find someone who's been on this lifestyle, not just through the food, but through the emotional, spiritual aspect for so long. Because this is a spiritual experience, not just a food experience. So thank
Mm.
you again.
We
And
have our little one in the background. I think she's falling over. But yeah, it is important. I think, and this is why over the last years coming out, speaking more. A lot of us need to speak more, come out, because there's so much against us as a species.
yeah,
It's like to keep us down, and then to recognize, stop eating the other species. That's bringing
yeah,
us down. So there's many levels of this, and over the last year, that's been more big now in terms of making that very relevant and mentioning that in everything I say and do, because, not to get too lost on it, but it's so relevant. As you are my brothers and sisters, I just want to share you some of this what I have experienced, what I see other people have experienced. Yes, it's objective to me, and some people can say, yeah, we're doing great on a, you know, on the flesh or whatever they want to call it. But, you know, don't tell me you're coming from love and compassion. You know, no one, please tell me that. And you're not addressing what's on your plate. You know, there's no way. You know, everything doesn't want to die, you know. And then someone can say, well, what about the plants?
I,
Yes, okay. I'm going to say, well, I'm working on that. I am 90%, 80%, 90% fruit and nuts and seeds, or, you know, or 5% plants. If
right,
someone wants to say that. At least
right.
I'm not, the thing is, we all need an acknowledgement. It's like children. It's like we're all still unfed. We still got our gummies in our mouths. We're still, you know,
Yeah,
having tantrums. It's like, oh my gosh, when you have children, you get to realize if you hadn't worked for it, through it, you'd be, well, I have very traumatized children. We, you know, we're
right,
still.
right, right.
So that's the
Thank
bit
you.
about the animals. Come on, stop all that.
Yes,
Fish,
thank
fish
you.
as
Thank you
well.
for
Fish,
sharing
fish,
that.
fish. You know,
Thank
because it's just, it's, you know, we all have mums and dads. You know, it's like, oh, you know, you need to
Yeah,
go there. We need to go there too,
you do need to
because
go
that's
there.
what keeping us
Yeah,
in the lower reality, lower realms, keeping the samsara going, keeping this loop, this loosh, whatever we want to call it. And then we're policing each other. Like someone might jump on now. Did Pete say that? Blah, 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 blah,
no,
blah. Anyway,
it's good. It's
to
good. I
send out love.
appreciate. Yes, yes. I appreciate you sharing that too, and I so look forward to talking to you really soon here. And have a beautiful rest of your day with your family and your
Yes.
sweet baby and your wife. Tell them all hello from me and much love to you guys.
And thanks ever so much for having us on here as well.
Yeah, you're
And
welcome.
you're on the bundle as well. So people, there's some amazing people on there, amazing recipes. So yeah, we'll be doing more promoting about it, but you know, promoting to share like with our fellow brothers and sisters,
That's right.
you know, because we love ourselves, so we love you, you know.
Yes, yes. Mm. Thank you
Anyway,
so much. Have a beautiful day, Pete.
you too. Thank you ever so much
Bye.
for having me.